Hi, my name is Deb Weiss-Gelmi, and this is a gentle yoga class, also level 1 class. And so today you might need a chair if you use it for downward facing dog, and then 3 to 5 blankets and a block. So we'll start with Adho Mukha Virasana. I'll show you the shape of it, and then we'll talk about details while you're in it. But I first sit on my feet and I join my big toe mounds, and my knees come apart wide enough, just wide enough to get my ribs through, and I lean forward. Now, it could be that you might need a block underneath your head. It could be that you need some, if you're not able to sit down on your feet, you could have some blankets between your buttocks and your feet. So these are the kinds of props that you'll need to get. So once you watch this, then you can pause it and get some props. But from here, you'll lengthen the torso forward, 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 forward. If you have something under your head, it might look like this. If you don't need anything on your head, then your head will go to the floor. If you don't need anything under your buttocks, then your feet will go down, or your buttocks will go down to your feet, and you're lengthening forward. And then we'll talk about the work in the pose. So pause if you need to, get some props, and then we'll start. So we'll sit down with our big toes together, the knees apart, so the ribs can fit through the thighs, and then lengthen your arms forward. If you need head support, of course, take it. But so my arms are shoulder width apart, and I press through the pointer finger mound and the middle finger mound, and then lift the elbows up off the floor. The hands stay on the floor, the elbows lift up, and the outer shoulders roll down. Also, the outer arms come toward each other, and we spread the upper back. Soften the face. So lengthening from the hands all the way back to the low back, to the middle buttock toward the floor. Lengthening. The top thighs go from the inside out. Adho Mukha Virasana, downward facing hero's pose. So then we'll come up for Adho Mukha Svanasana. So I press my pointer finger and the middle finger down. We'll do this one together. Curl the toes under and lift the hips up toward the ceiling. So I'm taking my inner shoulders, lifting them up toward the hips, pressing the thighs back. Extend through the inner heel gently. Press the thighs back. So imagine that I have a strap and I loop it around your thighs, or pull your thighs back with the strap and lengthen that torso. From your pointer finger mound, lengthening through the inner shoulder to the hips, pressing up. Adho Mukha Svanasana, downward facing dog. And then you can come on down. And we'll go up one more time. For those of you who aren't going to the floor, you can put your hands onto the chair and do it this way. Or if you were doing the floor and it was just too much, you can also do it with your hands on the chair seat or the chair back. Otherwise, we'll go up again the way that we were in the last pose. So the hands are shoulder width apart, and the feet are the same distance apart from each other as the hands. And then curl the toes under, press through the pointer finger mound, up through the inner shoulder to the hips, pressing the thighs back. Soften the face. Lengthen. Press the thighs back. Cut the ankles back toward the wall behind you. Press the thighs back. And then we'll come on down. So our next pose is called Dandasana. It's staff pose. So many times it's good for us to be sitting on a blanket for this pose. So if you have your blankets and towels around, then For those of you who don't have blankets, you could use towels. But so you'll need 1 or 2 blankets stacked up behind you, depending upon the tightness of your hamstrings. So we'll sit down in Dandasana, extend through the inner heel, big toe mound. Put the hands with your fingers pointing towards your feet side. Put your hands by your hips, point your elbows back. Lift your back armpit to front armpit, lifting the sternum, rolling the outer shoulder back. Lifting that torso up. Soften your abdomen, soften the inner thighs to the inner knees to the inner heels. Shoulders tend to creep up here. Take the shoulders away from the ears. Point the elbows back toward the wall behind you. If you have your hands flat, then your arms will be more likely straight. But if your hands are cupped, like you're holding a tennis ball in there, then your elbows will be bent. So soften the abdomen, soften the inner thighs, soften the face. Dandasana, staff pose. So notice your feet and your knees. Are your knees facing the ceiling, or are they rolling out or anything? And same with the feet. So you want your feet to point up toward the ceiling, and same with the kneecaps. And then also notice how oftentimes our little toes will lengthen that way and the big toes this way, but we want it to be the opposite. So we extend through the inner heel, big toe mound, so it comes toward your screen, and then the little toe side comes back toward those outer hips. So it's lengthening through that inner foot. Shoulders away from the ears. Lift the back armpit to front armpit. Lift the front armpit up. Lift the sternum. Soften the face. Dandasana. So those feet that we just worked on, we're going to take into the next pose, Upavishtakonasana. So some of you might want to stay on a little height. And then Upavishtakonasana is a wide leg pose, so wide angle. So if you want to stay on height, you can. Now if you come off the blankets and your pelvis rocks back or rolls back, then put the height back under there. You want to be able to have an upright pelvis. So now again, the same knees pointing up toward the ceiling, the same feet extending through the inner side of the foot and the little toe side coming back, and lift the sternum up. And now if you can feel your sits bones, your buttock bones, you want to be somewhat on the front of your sits bones. So your pelvis is somewhat coming forward. Now we can of course overdo this, so you just need to be careful. If you're not able to feel your sits bones, then simply work to have your pelvis upright. And that can be helped by lifting yourself up in the back. You could have blocks behind you or something, and having your hands on something to help you lift the torso up more. You could also just have your hands right behind you and lift. The pose looks simple, but it's not simple. There's a lot to it. So cut yourself a break if it's hard. So the knees up toward the ceiling and the toes up toward the ceiling. The sternum toward the ceiling, the crown of the head up as well. Shoulders then down. Trapezius muscles, those around your neck, down toward your buttocks in the back. Upavishtakonasana. So now from here we're going to twist. So first we'll bring the left hand around and twist to the right. So the right hand goes in the back and twist. So we're turning the torso toward the right leg. Oftentimes when we twist, we lose the structure of our legs. So be sure that the leg is still, the toes up in the air, the knees up toward the ceiling, the toes pointing toward the air, I should say, and twisting. Twisting, twisting. Soften the face, soften the jaw. And slowly unwind. And to the other side. Notice again your toes up toward the ceiling, the knees up toward the ceiling, and twist. Of course, you can use props that you have around. If you had your chair in front of you, you could use that to help you lift. You could have a chair on each side to help you lift. So we're lengthening up through the crown of the head and twisting. Lengthening through the inner legs toward the inner feet. Little toe side coming back toward those outer hips. And then slowly unwind. So for this next pose, Baddha Konasana, you will want some blankets to sit on. So bring those blankets back if you got rid of them. And then you'll hold on to the backs of those knees, the strings of the knees, and you want to try to let that tenseness there relax as you bring the leg in. So you're bringing that leg in, bringing the other leg in, and then we'll sit up on the blanket if you're not already on it. So sit up on the blanket. And then to bring those legs in, you'll hold on to, we call it the strings of the knees. So you hold on to the strings of the knees and then bring that foot in. And then hold on to the strings of the knees and bring that foot in. So if we just jam the feet in there and don't soften that inner knee, that's when we can hurt our knees or make them or irritate them or whatever. So we want to take care of those inner knees there. So once we get our feet in here, then you can use your hands on the blanket behind you and lift the torso up. And when you lengthen the torso up, try to soften the abdomen and the inner thighs. Softening. It takes a while. So as you're sitting here, you can really focus your attention on the inner thighs and see if you can think, oh yeah, I am holding there. And then see if you can also let it go. So increasing awareness, increasing body intelligence. Noticing what your habits are and working to see if there's anything that we can tweak a little bit to help create a nicer balance for our entire body. Soften the face. You can also have your hands around your shins. The higher up you are, the more difficult it is to get to the shins or the feet. So it depends on your height. Now if you've been doing this for a bit and you want to go a little deeper, you can scoot forward and come off the blankets. But that's not for everybody. That's just for some. If you're coming off the front, you want to continue to soften those inner thighs, inner knees. And then to come out, we'll use the muscles of the arms, bring the knees up, and take the legs out in front of us for Dandasana. Those hands behind us to lift up as we soften. So that was a pretty intense knee bend. So you want to allow those knees time to let go. Don't press down on the knees to straighten the legs, but press down on the heels and the roots of the thighs, where the thighs meet the pelvis. So press down in those places and allow the knees to slowly open back up. So we're back in our Dandasana, one of the poses we started with. So our next pose is called Marichyasana 1. So I'm going to lose one of the blankets for myself, but you can decide how much height you want to sit on. We'll start in Dandasana. This is a twist with one leg bent. Okay, so we have two different versions coming up. This one is Marichyasana 1. So first I bend the left leg and pull that left heel right into the body. And we don't want the foot to cross over the midline. So we use that leverage of the leg to lift the sternum up, lengthen through the crown of the head. And for Marichyasana 1, we're going to bring the left arm in and then turn away from the left leg, turning to the right. Now I happen to be at the wall, so I can use the wall for some leverage here. But you can use the floor under your hand as well. And then turning away from the bent leg. Lift the sternum up. Shoulders away from the ears. Turn, turn, turn. And don't forget about this leg. The knee pointing toward the ceiling, the foot pointing toward the ceiling, flowing through the inner thigh, inner knee, inner heel. That little toe side coming back toward that outer hip. Marichyasana 1. This pose is named after a sage as well. Twisting around that spine. Soften the face. Now this bent leg, you want to make sure you press through the inner heel, big toe mound as well, keeping the stability of that foot on the floor. But then trying to soften the front thigh where it connects with the hip and the abdomen. Soften there. And then we'll slowly unwind. I use my hands on each side of my knee to guide that foot back out. Back to Dandasana. Shoulders away from the ears. Soften the abdomen, soften the inner thigh, bringing the right leg in to the base of your body. Press through the inner heel, big toe mound of that bent leg, and then use that leg as leverage to lengthen up. Lengthen the sternum, lengthen the side chest up, shoulders away from the ears. Soften the face. And then now the right arm will hook on the inside of the right knee and turn to the left. So you can have your block underneath your hand in the back. You could use the wall or a blanket for leverage to turn. Now the straight leg, knee facing up, extend through the inner heel, big toe mound, toes facing up. Pressing through this standing foot here on the inner foot and soften the thigh at the hip. So that inner thigh is softening there. Soften the inner thigh of that bent leg especially. Find the connection between the soft abdomen and the soft inner thigh. And then we'll slowly unwind, hand on each side, legs back straight. Sitting back in Dandasana, lift the sternum, shoulders away from the ears. So our next one is Marichyasana 3. The one that we just did was 1, and that one was turning away from the bent knee. So this one is Marichyasana 3, where we'll turn toward the bent knee. So we'll start by bending the right leg this time. Bring the heel right into the body. Of course, we want this leg to be active, the knee up, the toes up. And this time we lift as we did before, but we'll turn toward the knee instead. So we hold that hand we hold the knee with the hand, lift, and turn toward that knee. So again, softening and spreading the abdomen as you turn toward that inner thigh, and then softening and the inner thigh as well. And so this is the start. And then as you soften the abdomen and the inner thigh, press through the inner heel, big toe mound. Extend through the inner heel, big toe mound of the straight leg. And then if you want to go a little deeper, then you can take the outer edge of the left elbow, or the outer elbow I should say, and then turn maybe a little deeper. So drawing that abdomen, spreading it wide, softening the inner thigh of that right leg as you twist. Keep the soft face. And we'll slowly unwind. Guide that knee back with the two hands, back to Dandasana. So now we'll take the left leg, bring the foot right into the body, making sure not to cross the midline. Press through the inner heel, big toe mound. Lift the body up, the torso up, lifting up, up, up. And then first, starting with a gentle turn, holding on to the outer edge of that knee, lifting and turning. The straight leg extending through the inner heel, big toe mound. The kneecap is facing the ceiling and so is the foot. Turning. So softening the abdomen and the inner thigh, finding that connection between the two. And then, if you want to go a little deeper, you can take that outer right elbow on the outer left knee and twist, bringing that body more through that space. So softening that inner thigh, keeping that inner thigh, the bent leg, soft. Twisting, so lengthening the spine long and then twisting from there. And then we'll slowly unwind. Take that leg back out for another Dandasana. Lift the front body up, soften the inner thighs, extend through the inner heel, big toe mound, shoulders away from the ears. Our next pose is Supta Baddha Konasana. So this was Baddha Konasana where we had our feet like this, and then the Supta part is reclined. So we will set up some props, and once you see what I set up, you might have to pause and go get some props. This bolster could be some blankets stacked up like this. We have some blankets like this that we fold in the narrow edge. So you could do 3 blankets like this stacked up on top, and then, or if you have a bolster, you can use that. I'm going to use a bolster so I can use the blankets for under my knees. So I'll show you that. So first I will show you just the quick shape of the pose, and then you can pause and go get your props, and then we'll do it together. So I have these blankets here for my knees, and then my bolster, and then this blanket here for my head. So if you were using blankets, you could have 3 blankets here, maybe a block for the head, and then maybe even couch cushions or something for under the knees. Okay, so I'll show you the shape first, and then we'll talk through some points. So I have some space between, so I bring my feet together, Baddha Konasana like we did, and then I have some space between myself and the bolster, and then I lift up and lay back and prop my head. I lengthen my buttocks away a little bit, and then I can use blanket or something under my knee. It could even be a block. And then under the knee, and then I can continue to adjust until comfortable, softening the inner thighs to the inner knees, flowing the shoulder toward the hands, and then to come out, and we'll talk through a lot more, but to come out, I use the muscles of my arms to bring my knees together, and then roll to the side. Okay, so if you need to pause and go get props, go ahead and do so. Okay, so then we'll go in together. So I'm going to move this so you can see the legs. But so I bring the soles of my feet together, and then I can have those blankets or whatever I'm putting under there to support the knees so I can soften the inner thighs. And then lift up. So now we're doing it together. We lift up and lay or lie back onto the props behind you. Bring the blanket in toward the shoulders, but the blanket is not under the shoulders. It's only under the neck and head. And then soften the abdomen. Flow the soft abdomen through to the soft inner thighs. And then support your legs in a way that allows you to fully let go of the inner thighs. Supta Baddha Konasana, reclined, bound angle pose. So if you go into the pose and something is not quite right, adjust until it feels right. And if this pose doesn't work for you today, that's okay. You can do the upright version. This one is really nice because it allows us to let go. If we get the right props set up for us. So if you're feeling any tension in your low back, you can take your hands and physically move the flesh of your buttocks away from the setup. And that lengthening of the low back sometimes is enough to allow us to let go there. Flow the shoulders toward the hands. Soften the face. If you're ready to come out before we are ready, you will use the muscles of your arms to bring your knees together and roll to your side. But otherwise, we're going to stay for a little bit longer. Soften the face. Soften your abdomen and inner thighs. Out to the knee. Let go. If you need to adjust your props underneath your knees to allow for a little more lengthening and softening, you can do that. And then to come out, use the muscles of your arms to bring the legs together. The reason we're using the arms is so you're not tightening the inner thighs. So use the arms, bring the legs together, and roll to your side. And then push yourself up. This next pose is Setu Bandha Sarvangasana. So we'll use a lot of the same props that we just did, but a little differently. So those 3 blankets that you had stacked for under your body, you can use that again. And it just depends on what you have. You'll need something like these blankets for under your body, just as we just did in the last pose. And I'll show you, and then you can decide. And then we'll need something under our feet. So I'm going to use this for my body and the blankets for my feet, but you might have the blankets for your body and then some blocks for your feet. So I'll show you, and then you can figure out what you need. So the setup is the bolster or set of blankets here is away from the edge of the mat here, because this is where my head and shoulders will go. And then the torso will be on here, and then the blankets. So watch first. I sit on the bolster, and I lean back onto my hands, and then I lift my buttocks and take my buttocks away a little bit. And then I lie down on the blanket, and then I use the friction of the blanket to drag my trapezius muscles away from my neck and flow the front body down toward the floor. And then once my shoulders are on the floor, then I can take my hands out, palms up, flowing the shoulders toward the hands. And then once my shoulders are fully touching the floor, then I can take one leg at a time out to the blankets or the blocks or whatever you have down there, footstool, whatever you've got. And so sometimes when we put our feet up, then we lose the weight of our shoulders or the contact with the shoulders on the floor. So I put my feet back down, use my heels, press over a little bit more to get some good weight of the shoulders on the floor, and then put the feet back. So Setu Bandha. Okay? So then to come out, put my feet on the floor, and then roll to the side. Okay, so you can pause if you need to go get some props and figure this out, and we'll do it together. So I'll sit down on the edge of the bolster, lean back onto the hands, lift and lengthen my top buttock away from my low back, go down to the elbows, then use the friction of the blankets or bolster to drag my trapezius muscles away from my neck as I take my shoulders to the floor, flowing my front body down toward the shoulders. And so then you want to make sure that your shoulders are heavy on the floor and the back of your skull is on the floor. You're looking up at the ceiling because the back of your skull is just resting comfortably on the floor. The shoulders are on the floor. And once you feel a strong connection from your shoulders to the floor, then you can lift your legs up and lengthen through the pelvis, through the legs, through the inner heel, big toe mound. Now the legs stay active in this. The face is soft, the abdomen is soft, the inner thighs are soft. But extend through the inner heel, big toe mound, keeping those toes pointing toward the ceiling, the knees pointing toward the ceiling. Now as I'm lying here, I'm losing a little bit of contact with my shoulders on the floor. So I put my feet down, press through the heels to press the torso this way a bit more to take those shoulders to the floor. Flow the shoulders to the hands, put the feet back up. Setu Bandha Sarvangasana. Now this is not a pose. You don't want to turn your neck in the pose because you have weight on your shoulders. You don't want to turn the neck in the pose. So if you have any questions of what you're seeing on the video, then you need to roll out of the pose, bend your legs, put your feet on the floor, roll out of the pose, look at what you need to see on the screen, and then come back. Soften the abdomen through to the inner thighs, to the inner heel, big toe mound. This is a great pose before bed to help with sleeping. It's calming on the nervous system. This is also an alternative to shoulder stand. So if you're not doing shoulder stand at any time, you can always do this pose for similar effects. Shoulder stand is the queen of poses, so it is the ultimate pose of these variations, but this is a variation that you can certainly do. And it's a pose in and of itself. One more time, soften the face and jaw. Soften the abdomen, the inner thighs. And then from here, we're going to go straight into Shavasana. So you can come on out and try to disturb yourself as little as possible and then lie back down for Shavasana. So I bend my legs, I roll to the side, and then you'll move your props out of the way and lie flat on your back. If you would like a little something under your head, you can put a little something like a little blanket or something under your head. And then on your back, with your knees bent, your feet on the floor, lift your buttocks up and lengthen the flesh of your buttocks away from the low back. And then take your legs one at a time out to straight. So they start out near each other and then they just splay to the side. So fully letting go of all the muscles in the legs. And then flow the shoulders toward the hands. Soften the face. Unhinge your lower jaw from your upper jaw. Soften the muscles in between your eyebrows. Soften the muscles around your eyes, around your cheeks. Unhinge your lower jaw from your upper jaw. Soften your neck and throat. Soften your shoulders flow your shoulders to your hands, softening the whole arm. Soften your chest and your abdomen. Flowing the relaxation of your abdomen through to the inner thighs, inner knees, inner calf muscles, and the inner heel and big toe mound. And from the top of your head all the way down to your feet, completely let go. And then to come out of Shavasana, bend your arms one at a time. Put your hands onto your front body. Bend your left leg, put your foot on the floor. Draw your right arm up and over your head. That right arm will become your pillow for your head as you push off your left side, using the left leg to push off the left side, roll to the right side. You can bring your knees together for comfort. And then use both arms to push yourself up into a seated position. There's a tradition in yoga where we say namaste, which means the light in me honors the light in you, or the best in me greets or says hello to the best in you. So from me to you, namaste.